Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the show. You are tuned into Salah Media. It is the weekend edition of the Iftar Drive, and my name is Zahid Jadwat. I'll be keeping you company up until Iftar time in Johannesburg later this evening. We're a short while away from Iftar in most parts of the country. Johannesburg at 6:30 p.m. Durban already counting down to 19 minutes past 6. Port Elizabeth at 43 minutes past 6. And Cape Town at 11 minutes past 7. Inshallah, your fasts will be accepted and iftars filled with barakah. Now, Honourable Dereleen James, MP from ActionSA. She joins us now to unpack her zero tolerance corruption bill, which she put forward in Parliament just a couple days ago. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you so much for having me on this platform. Apologies for the background, but it's actually my son's birthday, so we are out, but I thought let me make time for this very important interview.
We appreciate that tremendously. It is an important topic, and the work that you do in Parliament representing the people, quite important. I know we said we'd like to speak for half an hour, but considering that, I think we'll try and keep it as brief as possible, but we'll, of course, try to cover as much ground as we can. Now, for our listeners who might be catching up, this private member's bill, it amends the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. It introduces mandatory minimum sentences for corruption offences, and that is a first in South African law. Honourable James, let's start right there. You've said this bill has been in development for over some time now as part of ActionSA's broader anti-corruption package. What personally motivated you to take the step now, and why do you believe South Africa needs mandatory minimum sentences on the books?
I think it's been quite clear before Action SA and before we actually stepped into Parliament, we see the high levels of corruption. I think the Madlanga Commission as well as the ad hoc commission has just confirmed what South Africans has known for the longest time already. We know that the depth, it's an unexplainable depth. The rot is extremely deep. So when we stepped into Parliament, we already knew that we made a commitment to South Africans to declare corruption public enemy number one. And this is where this bill stems from. So we have been working on it for over the year. Yesterday, the bill was gazetted and it is now open for public participation. The bill focuses mainly on three aspects, but I think before I get there, the reason for this bill, we see every year, we've done some research and we found that between 27 and 100 billion rand annually is lost to corruption. Now, when I heard those figures, I was thinking, what could this monies not have done in our communities, the impact that it could have had in terms of, we often hear about the lack of resources at our police stations. Here on the Cape Flats, where families are having to wait for days on end, sometimes the van doesn't even appear because there's a shortage of vans. I've done oversight at police stations and found detectives, out of 16 detectives, there's one cell phone, there's no computers. So when we look at that, we find that the victims of corruption are the people in our communities. And this is the reasoning behind this bill.
I mean, it's a staggering amount that you mentioned there. And I think at this point, many South Africans feel that corruption really has become almost normalized, right? So, I mean, when we look at this bill, what exactly are the specifics behind it? How does it work?
Okay, so this bill basically has three aspects to it. I think firstly, we're looking at minimum sentences that are linked to the level of court the cases are tried in. So we are saying at your magistrate's court, there will be a minimum sentence of 5 years. At your regional court, there will be a minimum sentence of 15 years. At your high court, there's a minimum sentence of 18 years. Then second, the bill also doubles the fine for those that fail to disclose that they have been blacklisted to 500,000. We find in South Africa that companies that have been blacklisted continue to operate within various spheres of government. And I think this is the reason for us sort of increasing that the fine to 500,000. Then thirdly, the bill lowers the reporting threshold for fraud and, and forgery from 100,000 to 30,000. That places a stronger obligation on accounting officers to report corruption before it spirals out of control, before we have the ad hoc committee, before we have instances such as Busasa. So that is what Action SA is introducing.
Honourable Dereleen, we know we have these laws that are supposedly there to prevent or at least hold people accountable when they engage in corrupt activities. We say that we have the rule of law. We like to reaffirm our commitment to the rule of law. But what does that really mean? And even bills like this one that's now been introduced, what do they mean when institutions like the NPA have been, eroded and really just unable to get to the work that they need to do?
I think this bill couldn't have come at a better time, especially now when we have, like I said earlier, on the ad hoc committee, and we have the Madlanga committee that is dealing with the rot in the system, that has identified the rot in SAPS, in the NPA. So I think, coupled with the reforms that will be tabled this week, as a member that's serving on the ad hoc committee, we will be starting our deliberations towards, introducing reforms and making submissions in terms of the changes that needs to take place in these various state organs that has compromised state security. So I think this bill will basically enhance what we as MPs have been doing in the ad hoc committee, and when it comes to our final report to Parliament. I also think that, many a times, and yes, we do have very strong legislation in South Africa, but I found implementation is lacking in all spheres. And this is why it is so important for people to go to the ballot box and sort of vote properly so that we can have political will to actually see these bills materialize in society.
Mm. And to get some context, what are the other elements of Action SA's reform package which might complement this bill?
Well, we're still looking at more bills that we will be launching. Already we have introduced, about a month ago, we introduced the whistleblowers bill. I think there's a great need for the protection of whistleblowers in South Africa. There's a great need to incentivize whistleblowers in South Africa, not only to sort of strengthen protection for them, but also incentivize them, and also sort of put reforms in place that encourage people to blow the whistle in a sort of safe environment. And that is what Action SA is introducing. So already we have the one bill in terms of our anti-corruption package that we're offering. We now have the zero tolerance bill. And yes, we will just continue strengthening, legislation as we go along.
Mm. And now, realistically, I mean, private members' bills do face a tough road in Parliament. There's the debate, there's committee scrutiny, there's potential amendments, possibly even delays. So, what's your sense of the support so far across parties, and what do you hope happens next in the process?
At this point, while listening to parties right now, on the various interviews to speaking about corruption, it would appear that everyone has had enough. It would appear. But I think we will have the actual sort of the reality whether people are really serious about seeing an end to corruption is when we get to vote this bill into legislation. So we wait for that, but I know that the bill is open for public participation until the 12th of April, and the support from the public has been overwhelming. So if anything, those political parties in Parliament, they represent the public. They should hear the voices of the public, which is loud at the moment, and then take the decision from there.
Mm. And looking at the bigger picture, I mean, corruption isn't just a legal issue, it's moral and it's societal. And I mean, for myself, people like myself, during Ramadan, we are purifying ourselves. We're giving charity, we're trying to abstain from certain actions. So, what message then would you send to public officials who are tempted by corruption, or to citizens who feel powerless against it?
I honestly feel that, based on everything we've heard, we've seen that, we need to move beyond, demanding policing. We need to do the right thing, irrespective of who's watching and who's not watching. South Africans need to sort of adopt the culture of being doing the right thing and just being voluntary compliance. I call it voluntary compliance. We need to learn to comply and adhere to laws, whether someone is watching or not, whether we have SAPs or not. We just need to start working together towards the betterment of this country. I think that is it for me.
Fantastic. And finally, for our listeners who want to get involved or follow this closely, how do ordinary South Africans support this push for zero tolerance?
There's a link. I have uploaded the link on my social media platforms. It is also on the ActionSA platform on Twitter. It is there on Facebook. You can log on to www.actionsa.org.za and you will find the link there and you can go on there, just click on it and you can give your input.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Honourable Dereleen James, and happy birthday to your son.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that was Honourable Dereleen James, a Member of Parliament, joining us on the weekend edition of the Iftar Drive and pushing with the Zero Tolerance Corruption Bill in Parliament. So she clearly has a passion for accountability that really shone through this interview. And it's exactly the kind of leadership South Africans deserve. Now, to our listeners, if today's discussion moved you, please feel free to share it with family and friends, follow ActionSA's updates on the bill, and keep the conversation going in your circles. Corruption, after all, steals from all of us. Let's stand together for integrity and justice. We're now minutes away from Iftar in many places. In Johannesburg, you have about 45 minutes. If you are in Durban, it's even shorter. You have until 19 minutes past 6 o'clock. In Port Elizabeth, Iftar will set in at 43 minutes past 6, and in Cape Town at 11 minutes past 7. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue with the show. Please do stay with us.
With Ashraful A, this